and she's telling everybody over there, if I should get elected, we will take the women prisoners and make them sex slaves to the men.
Ooh, she's going to win.
Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
All the men will be voting no.
Yeah. So,
What a thought.
But I know the Muslims over there think, hey, this is great, because we can rape them, do whatever, and then kill them, and nothing will happen.
What a thought. What a thought. Well, let's go back to Hannah and Peninnah. This man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord God, Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Why didn't he go to Jerusalem?
Shiloh is where the main temple was.
Not the temple that Solomon built.
Oh, okay. Temple that, not David.
Who was Eli?
Eli.
Now, I know we'll all know, but who was Eli? What fame did Eli have?
Wasn't he a high priest?
Yeah, and a judge.
Yeah.
So, what were the judges really basically functioning as? Kings. Because they made rules and regulations and they governed the people. Okay, so here we go. This man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts. I've read it twice now, and nobody said a word. Why didn't he go 3 times a year?
They only had to go one time.
I thought they had to go 3 times a year.
Oh, wait a minute.
Every Jewish male had to go 3 times a year, is what I've been told. Well, there's a lot of more anomalies about this dude, so let's just keep going. And who did he offer sacrifices to? The Lord of hosts. Who's the Lord of hosts?
God.
Jesus Christ. He didn't offer him to God the Father.
Wait, do it again here because
You just
said
lost
twice,
me.
but it doesn't say that.
Sir?
You're saying twice, but it doesn't say that.
Say what?
No, once.
So you went into the city.
You said twice or you said once?
He said once. He said, why didn't he go?
3 times.
Why didn't he go 3 times a year? He only went up once.
Well, I think you're talking about the sacrifice.
Which sacrifice?
You're supposed to bring your sin offering once a year.
Okay, well, what about the Passover?
Well, it's not talking about the other days that you're supposed to show up. It's just talking about the sacrifice. That's what it's saying here, sacrifice.
They didn't sacrifice at Passover? They didn't sacrifice on Pentecost?
The Passover they ate as a family or amongst the Jewish people, and they ate an animal, yeah, but it wasn't like the sacrifice where they atoned or try to make an atonement for their sins. The sacrifice of bringing an animal to have the priest, slit its throat and set one free, that was one of the times that they needed to show up. This one's talking about the sacrifice. What was the other one? The
Pentecost?
tabernacle? They didn't have.
Pentecost?
Did they need to give a sacrifice then? I don't know.
Easter, Pentecost, and the Day of Atonement.
Easter?
They offered a sacrifice on Easter.
Easter?
All right, that's what, the Passover feast?
He's after me on Easter. Yeah, Passover. I was just giving it
That's
the
what I was
popular name.
Wait a minute, Easter, that's Passover.
That's Estros, yes. All right, let's keep going. We're going to learn some more. And when the time was, Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and daughters portions. How many children did Peninnah have? 10, we're assuming. That number just didn't jump out of the sky. You'll see it here in a few minutes. And when he gave Peninnah her children, sons and daughters, portions, unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut her womb. Where is it? How many times have we read this?
So, that's
Sarah, Rebecca,
Well, the people,
Hannah.
there was a whole town whose wombs got closed up because they tried to go after Sarah against God's will. He said that that's my sister.
Abraham.
Right. Said this is my sister, and then the people of the town were trying to hook up with his wife, thinking it's just his sister.
As in Egypt.
And so God shut up all of their wombs in the whole place. So none of the women there could.
That's about Genesis 14 or 15, yeah. And that was in Egypt. And that Egyptian king believed in one God. Yeah.
And God warned him in a dream.
And he didn't pay attention. He should have taken him some Rolaids or something so he wouldn't have had that problem. So anyway, here we go. And her adversary, who was her adversary?
Tonight.
Peninnah.
The fertile one.
Yeah. What did she do to Hannah?
Probably chased
Made fun of her.
Yeah, tormented her, made fun of her.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. And her adversary also provoked her sore. In other words, she threw it up to her all the time. Just always kept it going. For to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. Now, how did she know the Lord had shut up her womb? Well, it's real easy to figure out. How did she know that Elkanah was able to fertilize the eggs? Because Peninnah had 10. That meant the problem wasn't Elkanah. It would have to have been Hannah.
Yeah.
Because it was proven that it wasn't his problem as being able to reproduce.
Women can't have children. Because
That's what he's saying. She could, it wasn't the husband's fault that she wasn't having
Well,
any
yeah,
children,
but,
because he already had 10 by the
the
other.
Lord actually came down and told them, or
He said, this is Peninnah's assumption. Now, where is it verified? We'll keep reading. But the point of it is, Peninnah had 10 children, or so I think. Well, let's say,
It's right there.
yeah. And so it wasn't Elkanah that was a problem. It was Hannah. Why is it that the Lord shut up Hannah's womb? What had Hannah done? She was the one that was loved. Now, which woman was this same situation with Jacob? Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's the other one, Rachel.
Rachel and Leah.
Leah. Okay. And of course, what did our friend Abraham have a problem with? He and Sarah had been married 70 or 75 years, and they didn't have a child. And so Sarah said, I'll help the Lord out. We'll be Japanese. Do you know what the Japanese teach in their religion? No, they don't. They don't have any religion. But in their what they call religion, where they worship the emperor, they teach that if a woman cannot bear a child, then you have every right to put her away and find you someone that will.
Yeah, that's the Buddhist religion.
Buddha teaches that too. I don't know.
Well, I've been to Japan several times, and that's who you see in all their temples. a
Is
statue
Buddha?
of Buddha. And they've told me, yeah, we worship Buddha, don't you? No.
Well, I didn't know that. Thank you. Then Elkanah, verse 8. Well, let's do verse 7. And as he did, so year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, so she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. She took her appetite away from her. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh and after they had drunk. Now Eli, the priest, sat upon the seat of the post of the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul. Who else was in bitterness of soul over having a child? Rebekah. She told Isaac, you either give me children or take my life. That's serious.
Real serious.
Yeah, but he had the right to do that. This woman was in the same predicament. Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh. And after that, why the emphasis is eaten in Shiloh is that they'd offered the peace offering. Because that's what they were offering in Shiloh. And after they had drunk, now Eli the priest sat upon the seat by the post of the temple of the Lord. And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look upon the affliction of thine handmaiden, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. Now, that's pretty harsh. You give him to me and I'll give him back to you. How many people you know that will do that?
Well, Mary did it. She gave Jesus back at, what, 5 years of age?
Sir?
Didn't Mary give Jesus to the priest when he was 5?
The priest in what?
Didn't Mary give Jesus up to the priest, the rabbis, the high priest when he was 5 for instruction?
Not that I know about.
No, he was left behind, and he actually was the one.
It was the teacher.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the other way around. They learned from him, not he.
Yeah, he was straightening them out. And that would have been, he would have been 12. Well, I just think this is interesting. How badly did she want this child?
Pretty bad.
Enough to give him to the Lord. Now the question is, she specified a man-child. Why? She wanted him to serve in the temple. He was a Levite, and therefore could fill that function. Now there was a problem in Shiloh, and that was the sons of Eli. Phinehas and Hophni. Have you heard of Phinehas and Hophni? They were like Bill Clinton. They thought every woman was theirs. And when they'd come to offer a sacrifice or something like that, they would bargain with them and take them to do things that were unseemly and unright. And they were getting away with it. And what would Eli do? Nothing. Now, another thing that's a problem, that's always kind of bothered me about this guy, Samuel. He got married too. He had children also with his wife, of course. How did he raise his children? Yeah, he did, but how did he raise them? Poorly, very poorly. So much so that the Jewish fathers came to him and asked him to step down because he had nobody to take his place, because his sons were the dirt of the earth. 1 Samuel, the 8th chapter, I think it is. Flip over there. Verse 4. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. And the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people, and all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. Now, the question I'm asking, though, is what was it that Hannah did that every member of the church is supposed to do.
Raise their boy in the church.
Exactly. That should secure their thing with the Lord. So, she prayed. But did she pray intently? No, she put on one of those prayers she thought would get the job done. And so what happened to her attitude of heart? She began to get bitter. She began to get resentful. She began to think that she was not worth anything. And then she came to herself and asked herself some questions that I think is very interesting. And we'll get to those in just a minute. Hannah, and it came to pass, as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli marked her mouth. Why? He thought she was drunk. Why would he ever think that something like that could happen at the temple of the Lord? I'll introduce you in a minute to Eli and Hophni. To Phinehas and Hophni. They solicited those kind of women. She thought, as number 2 woman, or he did, that this was something that Phinehas and Hophni may have brought into play. But anyway. And Eli said unto her, How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, No, my Lord. I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial. For out of the abundance of my complaint and the grief have I spoken hitherto. Then Eli said unto her, Go in peace, and the Lord of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, Let thine handmaiden find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. What did that mean? Okay, I can't hear you.
Had faith that what was told her was going to happen.
Yeah, but he didn't tell her.
Roundabout way he did. And in a roundabout way.
Well, he said that's fine, but he didn't know what she was praying for.
Oh, he said,
But
let your petition be granted.
that's what I'm saying. In a roundabout way, he did tell her that what she was praying for, because her petition was what she was praying for. He said, Your petition has been heard. You know?
Well, and of course, the way I see it, she decided to turn it over to the Lord. She couldn't do anything about it. She'd turn it over to the Lord. She'd prayed a lot of prayers about it, but this time she got down in earnest. And when she did that, it attracted Eli's attention. And Eli thought it was so strong and aggressive, he thought she was drunk. He said, No, well, if it means that much to you, then may the Lord bless you. Now, I agree with all that. And that's really what I think was going on. And it could be a lot of other things, but that's what I think anyway. So, and they rose up in the morning early and worshiped before the Lord, and returned and came to the house of Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. Did he hear her prayer?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I know you can't pray directly to the Lord.
Well, this was Christ. But did he entertain her prayer? He remembered her. You remember our man Cornelius? Cornelius, that has come up before God as a memorial. Her righteousness and her obedience. He did not violate his word. He was not going to hear her prayer. But he did remember her. This is what the truth of the matter is about John 9:31. For we know God heareth not sinners, but if any man be a worshipper of God and doeth his will, him he heareth. That doesn't mean he entertains their prayers. He remembers that their righteousness comes up before him, and he then decides what he's going to do. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come, about after Hannah had conceived, she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of the Lord. And the man Elkanah and all of his house went up to offer unto the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. And Hannah went not up. For she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child is weaned. And then I will bring him, that he may appear before the Lord, and there abide forever. So she was going to take him up to Eli's house.
New messages received from Stephanie Powers.
And why is she calling on Wednesday night? We will take care of that. And anyway, when she got there, Hannah went not up, and Elkanah her husband said unto her, Do what seemeth right or good to thee. Tarry until thou hast weaned him. Only the Lord establish his word. So the woman abode, and gave her son suck until she weaned him. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with 3 bullocks, and 1 ephah of flour, and a bottle of wine, and brought him unto the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. And they slew a bullock, and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as thou soul livest, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition, which I ask of him. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. Like that phrase. I have lent him, rented him. I have given him to the Lord. Now, of course, did everybody know about Phinehas and Hophni? Yeah, all the Jews did. They knew that Phinehas and Hophni were corrupt. I think it's, turn to the 3rd chapter. No, the 2nd chapter. Look at verse 12. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial, and they knew not to,
Samuel,
1 Samuel.
2nd chapter.
Yeah. And they knew not the Lord. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servants came, and while the flesh was in seething, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, and he struck it into the pen, or the pan, or kettle, or cauldron, or pot. All that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. And before they burnt the fat, the priest's servants came and said to the man that sacrificed, Give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And if the man said unto him, Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, Nay, but thou shalt give it me now, and if not, I will take it by force. Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord. Now that's quite an example to have set in front of your son, isn't it? You mean to tell me that Hannah didn't know this? This was well known in the area. So, you take this kid, and you take it to a 2-time loser. And this 2-time loser is going to be the ones responsible for teaching this boy how to live. Now, did Hannah come up and try to button his business? No. Did she try to instruct Samuel as to how to be and how to live? She left that up to Eli. Now, if Eli couldn't take care of his children, how do you figure that he thought he could take care of her child? Interesting, isn't it? Now let's go back. The first part of the 2nd chapter. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoiceth in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. What's she saying? I have gotten the best of the deal, or I have pleased the Lord enough that he blessed me with this blessing. Yeah. There is none holy as the Lord, for there is none beside thee. Neither is there any rock like our God. She keeps telling you terminology that refers to which part of deity? Christ. Christ was the rock. Christ was the horn. Symbolically, that's the king. And so not only that, but Christ, of course, served in that function. Talk no more so exceeding proud, but let arrogance come out of your mouth. For the Lord is the God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty man are broken, and they that stumbled are girded with strength. That they that were full have hired out themselves for bread, and they that were hungry ceased. So that the barren hath borne 7, and she that hath many children is waxed feeble. The Lord killeth and maketh alive. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He bringeth the low and lifteth up. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust, and lifts up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes, and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. He will keep the feet of his saints, and the wicked shall be silent in darkness, for by strength shall no man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Out of heaven shall be thunder upon them. The Lord shall judge the ends of the earth, and he shall give strength unto his king, and exalt the horn of his anointed. And Elkanah went to Ramah to his house, from Ramah to his house. And the child did minister unto the Lord before Eli the priest. Now when you get to thinking about it, that's quite a statement for a woman who has not had much religious training to make. Every one of these women in turn had special revelations from the Lord that nobody else ever had. Take, for instance, Sarah. Cast out the bondwoman and her son. Did she know what she was talking about? Well, she was probably saying one thing, but it sure did mean something else when the Holy Spirit took it and made it usable in the kingdom of God. What did Rachel say? Give me a child or I die. She was telling the story that there was a life that would be traded of a child so that they could be at peace with God. What was Hannah doing? She said, I'm going to give my child to the Lord to serve him. Now, couldn't have been a worse example than Eli, I don't think. You know what the problem with Eli was? He didn't make his boys' mind. They didn't know what it was to be corrected. They had no idea about discipline. They did it as they wanted. Let's read now. Samuel ministered, verse 18, before the Lord, being a child, girded with a linen ephod, What does that mean? Linen was the clothing of the priest. What was an ephod? Ephod. No, that thing on their chest. And that shows that there might have been a way for the Lord to speak through him. But he had it on anyway. Moreover, his mother made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Came once a year. And to me, that's just phenomenal. And Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife and said, the Lord give thee seed of the woman for the loan which is lent to the Lord. And they went unto their home. And the Lord visited Hannah, so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. Did she take him back home? Yeah, he was. She did. She didn't make a bad deal. She did say, "I'm an Indian giver." There you go. I thought of that when I mentioned this a while ago. If you got some lint. Somebody asked me the other day, I don't know where it was now, do I celebrate Lent? I reached in my pocket and I had a piece. I said, yeah, here, you won't mind. They looked at me and they said, what's that? I said, Lent. That's what you asked me about, wasn't it? They didn't think it was too funny. Well, anyway. So Eli was very old, verse 22, and heard all that his sons did unto all Israel, and how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Now, you mean to tell me Eli didn't know this? You mean to tell me he could play ignorant?
No.
You mean to tell me he thought he was going to get away with it?
No.
Well, why didn't he correct these boys? Because somebody had told him, you're not supposed to correct him. You just talk to him. Discipline him that way. Well, anyway. He said unto them, why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people. See, everybody knew. So it became a joke to go to the tabernacle or the temple or the place where they worshiped the Lord and offer a sacrifice. Because Hophni and Phinehas was just waiting on you. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. You make the Lord's people to transgress. Now, wait a minute. I thought this was complicit. That's the reason that Eli thought that Hannah was drunk. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. And the child Samuel grew on, and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men. Where have you heard that phrase before? Christ.
Yeah.
He grew in favor with both man and God. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father, when they were in Egypt, in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer mine altar, upon mine altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? And did I give him the house of thy father, all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? In other words, haven't I taken care of you boys? Wherefore kick ye at my sacrifice and at mine offerings, which I have commanded in my habitation? Honorest thou thy sons before me? How would he honor his sons?
He let them unlock. He let them get away with everything they said.
To discipline them, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To do what they wanted to do at the tabernacle.
exactly. And to make yourself fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of Israel, my people. Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I said indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever. But now the Lord saith, he is far from me. For them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days come that I will cut off thine arm, and the arm of thy father's house, and there shall not be an old man in thine house. And thou shalt see the enemy in my habitation, an enemy in my habitation, in all the wealth which God shall give Israel. And there shall not be an old man in thine house forever. And the man of thine, whom I shall not cut off from mine altar, shall be to consume thine eyes, and to grieve thine heart, and all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. And this shall be a sign unto thee, that shall come upon thy two sons, on Hophni and Phinehas, and one day they shall die, both of them. And I will raise up a faithful priest, that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left in thine house shall come and crouch to him for a piece of silver or a morsel of bread, and shall say, Put me, I pray thee, into one of the priest's offices, that I may eat a piece of bread. Now that's pretty sad, isn't it? So, in the rest of the story that you can read, you'll read for yourself if you go home, Phinehas and Hophni died in one day. And what happened to Eli? Have you read the story?
Well, he started to go blind.
Sir?
He went blind. He went blind.
He was sitting on a log.
He fell back and broke his neck.
Yeah, and fell back and broke his neck. So not only did Phinehas and Hophni die, but they got his daddy. So what killed their father? Their disobedience. Well, let's go over here and read it. Have you never read of Samuel's call? We can get that, but here's the idea. Verse 12, chapter 4. Yeah, verse 12. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh in that same day with his clothes rent, and with earth upon his head. And when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, What meaneth the noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, What is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter amongst the people. And thy two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. Now what bothered Eli the most? Let's keep reading. Huh? No. Let's just keep reading. It came to pass, when he had made mention of the ark of God, that he fell from off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. Huh?
Gust of wind.
He was back down osteoporosis.
And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings of the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husbands were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pain came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, Fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, The glory is departed from Israel. That's what Ichabod means. Because the ark of God was taken, and because her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, The glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken. See, it didn't seem to bother that we could tell Eli a whole lot. Because just as soon as he heard this, he just fell backwards. Whether he threw himself or anything, we don't know. But in falling back, he broke his neck. When he broke his neck, he died. Who was going to take over as priest?
Samuel.
Oh, yeah, we know that now, but as the story is going on, who was going to be doing the work? It was interesting. And the Philistines came to battle, and if you've not read the rest of the book of it's interesting. They finally came back to bring the ark of God back. The reason being is that every time they put it where their God was, their God would fall on his face before him, break in pieces. Anytime they set it near the Ark of the Covenant, it'd bust up their God. And so they said, there's something strange about this. We got to get this back to where it belongs. And so they did. Now, the point I'm trying to make with all of this is the story has a moral. What was it that Hannah wanted more than anything? A child. What was she willing to do to have the child? Give it back to God. And when she did, the Lord blessed her. Of course, she had, 3 or 4 more kids after that. But the point of it was,
2 daughters or something like that.
yeah, there was 3 or 4 of them, you're right. So the story is interesting in that she decided, instead of having temper tantrums, or instead of getting a bad attitude, and instead of trying to take it out on the Lord, like I walked in the store the other day, this old gal told me, says, my brother died in January, my mother died in April, and my daughter died in June. She said, don't tell me there's no God. I don't believe that there's somebody like that could be that cruel. I said, well, I'm going to tell you something else. I don't know when you're going to die, but you will. So you can say how cruel you want to say. The point is, it's once appointed unto man to die. Death is not a tool of punishment. Now, did God kill Eli and Hophni as a tool of punishment? If he did, why did it take him so long? Did the example would get so bad that he'd have to get rid of him to defend his name? No, it was a timely thing that the Lord was doing. They had put in enough time and enough destruction. He was tired and going to get rid of them. What was wrong with Eli that he wouldn't correct his sons? But did he correct Samuel? Now, you know what the worst part of this story is? Samuel had sons. His sons were just like Eli's. But there's another thing that's coming down the road. If Samuel's sons had been righteous, who would have been in line to be the judge or the king of Israel?
One of Samuel's oldest sons.
But since Samuel's kids weren't good, and the elders of Israel decided they had to get some new material, who did they go looking for? A king. Who is it that Samuel chose? Saul. What kind of guy was Saul? And when they got rid of Saul, then the Lord chose his own. And that's where we get to David. It's an interesting story to me. A lot of people say, well, I wanted this, and I want that, and I've got to have this, and I got to just turn it over to the Lord. That's his plan. And if it's the Lord's will, it will be done. If it's not, you're just vexing yourself. You're just making yourself an enemy of your own peace. Your heart will get hardened, and you won't serve the Lord the rest of your life. What have you won? And you'll lose your children because they'll see this. There'll be no peace in your soul. Any questions?
Only one wife.
I'm sorry?